Day one of the round of 32 is in the books, and we are here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show to recap the games that have happened. There are still some ones going on. We'll touch on those. We'll preview tomorrow's slate. We're here to have a good time, and hopefully for not too long of a time because the Razorbacks are playing. So let's go ahead and party, shall we? We are live here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also going to be on your podcast player of choice in the morning. I'm Stephen Gillaspie, joined by my dear friend, Tyler Metcalf. Metcalf, how we doing, brother?
I'm fantastic. Living the dream. I know everyone comes here for weather talk. So, I have to be an old man and horrible small talk. But it's like, it was like 78 in Minnesota today.
Oh,
Just
nice.
gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous day. The next 2 weeks, it's like a high of 48. So just Midwest spring at its finest.
I just imagine it snowing all the time where you live. I never assume that the sun is out. It's just covered in snow.
We did get a foot of snow last weekend, but that was that.
Just a
This is
little,
now.
just a little bit, just a little bit of snow. Yeah. As for myself, to continue the old man conversation here, it's a nice 80+ degree weather here in Southeast Georgia. The kids were outside playing, so my daughter asked me, "Dad, do you mind if Miles and I go outside and play in the water?" I was like, "Sure," just assuming that they were going to be playing in like some neighbor's equipment or whatever. I go outside and they have just our water hose, just spraying each other with a water hose outside today, and our front yard is drenched. So I'm like, okay, everyone come inside. All right, that's enough. That's enough. Dad corner here on No Ceilings. Welcome to the corner, by the way, again, Metcalf.
Yeah.
Let's talk some basketball, man. We already have
Let's
some people here live in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all so much also for helping us get to 22K. We're on to 25K. Help us get there. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So, Metcalf, round of 32, we kind of talked about this yesterday. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting because the games are a little bit more tightly contested. The talent is a little bit more equal between the teams that we're watching all day long. Day one hasn't disappointed. A couple stinkers, but not much. There were some real great games. A lot of great games in terms of if you're just a college basketball fan, there was some stuff in here for you. If you're a draft fan, which is what we specialize at here at No Ceilings, a lot of fun storylines to pay attention to in here. So, Metcalf, I want to go ahead and tee you up right off the rip with Duke versus TCU. Now, TCU was in a pick'em game against Ohio State. Could have went either way. Of course, it went the way that I didn't want it to, and TCU won. So they played off against Duke, and I was expecting the final score to look the way that it did, but I wasn't expecting it to look the way that it did with the way that the game went, if that makes sense. It was really odd. How did you kind of watch this game? What were your thoughts as the game progressed? What were your major takeaways?
Yeah, and the final score isn't indicative of what 75% of this game looked like. This was a pretty close or at least competitive game for the bulk of it. And it was looking like another game of Duke being woefully underprepared and taking their opponent lightly yet again. I thought their ball security and attention to detail and just connective passing, like simple stuff, it was abysmal. Like guys were just throwing the ball away. Their outlet passes were directly to TCU defenders. And for a long stretch of this game, Cam Boozer had more turnovers than shot attempts, which is kind of tough.
Yeah.
But then, those last, what, 8-ish minutes or so, Duke just pours it on. They really pull away. TCU couldn't buy a shot for most of the second half. And even though their defensive pressure and intensity was really high throughout, they're missing bunnies. And when your best player goes 1 for 10 from the floor, you're not going to pull off a 9-1 upset. And then, even guys like Jaden Pierre, 2 of 10, Brock Harding, 3 of 8. No one on this team could buy a shot. They shot 33% from the floor, 29% from three, and 50% from the line. It just wasn't good enough, despite how hard they were playing on defense and how disruptive they were. it would have been really fascinating to see what it would have looked like if TCU could have capitalized a little more on that sloppiness from Duke, on all of those turnovers, and really converted them into points and gotten out to a little bit of a lead. Would have been fascinating to see if Duke would have tightened up at all.
Yeah, it would have. You touched on a lot of the great points. David Punch legit got punched today. Nose busted wide open on a Cam Boozer drive, elbow to the face. Um, it was tough game because I really liked what I saw from Xavier Edmonds. I think
Yeah,
Micah
he's
Robinson. Yeah, go ahead.
just I thought Edmonds has had had a really good tournament. I thought some of the passing stuff that he showed in this game too was really nice. I've liked him a lot this year, and I'm pretty intrigued for what his season looks like next year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, very tough guy. I like Micah Robinson a lot. Like, I don't know how this is gonna go. If he's gonna be fun, if he's gonna be AJ Store. Like, there's a lot of outcomes with him in college basketball. I think the majority of them I like. But like you said, just a lot of people in TCU didn't step up, and I think let's. Do you want to do the Cam Boozer conversation, or you want to talk
Yeah,
about Pat Young coming back?
no, let's do the Cam conversation first. He's the biggest name in this draft
Yeah, for
wise
a lot
of
of
this group.
yeah for a lot of people who don't know, potential probable top 3 pick within the 2026
Yeah,
NBA draft class, Cam Boozer. Probably, in some people's opinion, he's number one. He's like the least maintenance of the 3 guys that are discussed. He's a, consistent winner, almost like everything that he touches, King Midas, he's got the touch of gold. Everything he touches is going to be awesome, makes everyone around him better. We still saw some of the things that we're worried about in terms of defense, in
hmm
terms of scalability, stuff like that. But ultimately, like, he just guts out another victory. And we had an interesting discussion in the group chat. Like, would you rather have this Duke team this season, or would you rather have last season's Duke team? I think there's a fun kind of dynamic within that conversation. But there's something to be said about Cam Boozer. Even though this wasn't his most Cam Boozer game, he still looked amazing down the stretch. He put the team on his back in the closing moments of the game and willed them to victory.
Yeah, the final 10 minutes, he looked great. He looked like the national player of the year again, and a big reason why he got to. I mean, when you just look at most of his numbers, his raw box score: 19 points on 7 of 10 shooting, 5 of 5 from the line, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. If that's all you saw from this game, it'd be like, what are these guys nitpicking about? Like, that's like, yeah, he didn't put up 30, but that's an incredible stat
Yeah.
line. You also factor in the 5 turnovers. You factor in that he only had 4 shot attempts until like 12 minutes left in the second half. And some of the defensive playmaking numbers look good, but I thought this was another really, really ineffective defensive game from him, especially with the rim protection. Like, he's great at staying vertical and he's really strong, so it's tough to finish through him. But we never ever see any of like that verticality turn into those like last second swipe downs for a block. Like, that's what guys like Chet Holmgren were elite at in college, where you rotate, you stay vertical, you don't foul, but then you also have the hand-eye coordination and awareness to swipe down on the ball once the shooter like extends it away from their body to get the shot off. And Cam just goes straight up, and it's super easy to finish around him. It was, guys got him in the air on some pump fakes a decent amount today, and we saw the importance of what having a center next to him on the defensive end, how crucial that was for Duke today. So I still obviously really, really, really like Cam.
Yeah.
I I would probably take him at 3 no matter what. And I don't think he's going to be a bad player by any means, but the defense has been like, a lot of the concerns I had coming into the year have popped up, and all of the good stuff that we saw every single game in high school, I feel like are just nowhere to be seen. And the defensive regression is just bewildering to me, because he doesn't need to be Hakeem Olajuwon out there, but historically his timing, his awareness, his fundamentals have been perfect. And they're just lazy this year. And I feel like throughout this tournament so far in these 2 games, they've really been on display.
I think so too, and that's why I even mentioned this in the chat as well, that I don't have them advancing past the next round. Like, they very well could, but I have St. John's beating them. I think that they're just like Duke. They're very well coached. I think they also have a very talented and athletic front court in a lot of different areas. The backcourt is a little bit bigger. Playmaking, I still probably give a little bit of that edge to Duke. I don't know if Caleb. I don't think Caleb Foster is slated to be back at all from
He's
the
still in
last
the boot
report that
today.
yeah, I think that I saw that he was probably out for the rest of the season, is the report that I saw.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say. The good news is for Duke that Caden Boozer, brother of Cam, has been really turning it on lately. And I
Hmm.
think that, his improvements have really stood out. With the warts or the areas of concern that you and I have been discussing with Cam Boozer, before we move on from him, what did you see that you liked from him in this game?
And the fact that he started as slow as he did and still ended up 19.7 of 10 shooting and didn't miss a shot down the stretch where he went from one, I think 1 of 4 to 7 of 10.
Yeah,
And it's tough to argue with that. And the rebounding with him too is always going to be so dominant.
yeah,
And just the physicality that he plays with and his ability to out leverage basically anyone on the court, whether he has a smaller mismatch or a bigger guy on him, it doesn't really matter. So just that calmness with him, we saw him get a little erratic, a little sped up in that Siena game with their defensive coverages, some of the uncharacteristic sloppy outlet
yeah.
passes, but he never let that really take him out of the game today, and he just kind of kept plugging along and finished really, really, really strong. And that's a testament to his, I know he's a freshman, but his winning experience going back through high school and at the national level, and that ability to just, even on bad days, like again, we're saying, what, this is a bad game for Cam Boozer, and he shot
Yeah.
70% and had a double double, along with 4 stocks. Like, that ability to know how to make winning plays even when things aren't going your way, even when it's not perfect circumstances, is a real testament to who he is as a person and a player.
I can't help but agree with you, man. And I think too that even though that this game wasn't picturesque, but the outcome looked exactly the way that we thought it was going to go. I think that it's interesting that Pat Nyongba kind of came back today. He finished with
Yeah.
4 points on 2 of 2 scoring, 4 turnovers though, and 1 steal. Obviously, Rusty has been, probably what 2 3 weeks since he's last been on a basketball court competitively. The pressure of the game has kicked up exponentially since the last time that he played. He's in a pressure cooker now. Every game is the last, could potentially be the last game. Whole crazy new environment for him just to be airdropped into. What did you take away from seeing him for the first time back? I think since they said what March 2nd was the last time that he played.
Yeah, I think he, like, his last 5 games he missed.
Yeah,
I thought he was just okay. Um, that that's been my issue with Pat all
yeah,
season, where it's like we get 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 plays a night on both ends of the floor where it's like, oh my God, that was awesome. And then it's like, oh, wait, where did he go?
yeah,
And I know he's coming back. He only played 13 minutes. There's some load management and minute restriction there, I'm sure. So I'm not trying to be too harsh on him, but it's just a bunch of really low level contributions. The 4 assists are great, but the 4 turnovers really bother me. And Duke as a team obviously had 17, and Pat and Boozer were leading the way in that realm. And if he's able to get to 4 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and no turnovers, I get a little more excited about that. And the defensive stuff just kind of continued to be what it's been, where hand-eye coordination on blocks and stuff is solid. Um, Pretty decent rim deterrent, really physical down there, but guys don't seem intimidated by him. Like, no
yeah,
one that Duke plays ever seems afraid to challenge the rim. And even though some of the block numbers with these guys are encouraging, there's no like rim deterrence, like we see from other big time college prospects. Like you mentioned last year's Duke team, guys didn't want to go challenge Malawach at the rim, and
no,
obviously was a massive human being. Um, but you can sense that major difference between just these last 2 years.
for sure. I mean, 4 fouls to a handful of turnovers. The passing. which has kind of been the separator for him in a lot of ways for some folks,
Hmm.
wasn't great at all. He threw the rock away. And I know that he hasn't played a lot, but if 2 3 weeks without playing is going to turn into him throwing the ball away that recklessly, like what's the how far apart is the draft in his first NBA game going to be? Like if he gets
Yeah,
drafted this year, I don't know. This and it's going to get harder. So
and
the play,
I don't trust him to make it through a full NBA season, and that sucks to
yeah,
say. I hope he does. Obviously,
another injury for him.
never rooting for injuries, but that's been the story of his career for the last
Yeah,
however many years. He's just unfortunately always hurt, and when you get a big man who perpetually has foot injuries, that stuff scares me. So I don't know. Well, I hope it
yeah.
works because when he's right, he's awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have him top of the second round now. There's been a lot of other big men kind of like take that spot from him. Let's get positive because
Yeah,
there's two players who I think you could take a lot away from. Two guys who I think their draft stock is only improving with the March Madness
yeah,
tournament. Let's start with Dame Sar,
yeah.
who we talked about his defensive performance last game that Duke played. Like they don't win that game without some heroic defensive flashes from him. Today, Metcalf 4 of 7 from deep, and not these rinky dinky. I'm gonna be set, catch it in the shooting pocket, get the shot up. Like he's doing some dynamic shooting in this game against a pretty aggressive and capable kind of wing room for the Horned Frogs. What did you make of the offensive performance tonight from Dame?
He knocked down a couple corner threes, but then, like you said, he was breaking out a few step backs. I'm like, Dame, when was the last time you ever
You can
tried that
do
shot?
that. I love the post on Twitter that you did, the Pat Ewing post.
We haven't seen him take that shot all year. Maybe
Never.
outside of a few blowout games, but which I guess this one turned into. But that's been the big thing with Dame, where and he's been like he's at like 45% or give or take from both corners this year. And if he can really be a reliable catch and shoot guy with some secondary creation in his game, because coming into this year, like going through the Barcelona team and at Hoop
Yeah.
Summit, like one of the biggest intrigues with him was like, oh, this dude's got some legitimate ball skills. He's a menace in transition. There's some really fun passing flashes. What can this continue to mold into? And obviously at Duke this year, it's just purely been play finisher, like zero creation responsibilities, probably for a reason. But we keep getting the little tastes of more of that kind of stuff every single game with him. And the defense continues to stay at that elite level. I mean, I've struggled with him because coming into the year, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a first rounder," and then he really sucked like the first half of
Yeah.
the year. And I'm like, "Nope, we will see you next year." And he just kind of keeps steadily climbing. And currently on my board, I think I still have him in like that early second round flyer range. But I'm consistently getting to the point of like, is this just not who we hoped Bilal Koulibaly could be? Like, is he
Mm.
that type of wing with a little more reliable shooting? Maybe not the defense to Koulibaly's level, but like B plus A minus version of that with more reliable spot up shooting and a tighter handle, some more intriguing passing flashes. Just the more he plays, the more fascinated I get by him. And when you're in like around pick 20 or something, or even late teens, and you have this athlete with those physical tools, with that offensive upside, the improvement as a spot up shooter, and that defense is like how can you really pass that up when we look at how Koulibaly's early season has gone, how Peyton Watson's career and season has gone,
I love that one. Yeah.
and he'd be a big swing, but that's the kind of guy that you get really really excited about.
That's the draft, man. Like the draft is nothing but big swings. You know
Yeah,
why? What's he listed at? Like 6'7", 6'8", somewhere in that neighborhood. I think with the way that this tournament is
6'8",
going,
190.
6'8", 190. With the way that this tournament is going for him, like if he blows the combine out of the water, like if he measures within like let's say top 3 to 5 biggest hands, standing reach, vertical jump,
His
like if
wingspan's
these
going to be
number
really good.
the wingspan we know is we don't
Yeah,
know exactly what it is, but we know it's
it's
good.
going to be good.
Yeah, if the rest of everything is like 90th and above percentile within this class, I could easily see teams just chomping at the bit to get a guy like him. I have him in the second round too, but the way that he's closing out this season, and again with combine, I could easily see him come up. Let's talk about his teammate Malik Brown, who
Yeah.
a lot of us have been like, he's probably a pro in some capacity, maybe a two-way Exhibit 10 guy. The more that we watch him, the more that I watch him, I'll say, just like this dude lets the game come to him. Now, that's like a very vague and generic term, is that he just kind of like lets the game come to him, but it seriously feels like he will go to a spot defensively knowing that what is going to happen next will be at that exact same spot. It's not like I'm just going to dribble the ball and let the defense move around, see an opening and sprint through it. That's typically what I think of when I hear lets the game come to him.
Hmm.
He goes somewhere on defense knowing that that's where the ball is eventually going to end up, and he almost always makes a play, whether it's a rebound, whether it's a block, a steal, a putback, like something along those lines. He's just the typical lunch pail dude, and I just think that insert playoff team X. I was even talking about with someone on Twitter today that I could easily see the Hornets continuing to capitalize on the in-state pipeline that they've been using over the past couple of drafts, and second round the Charlotte Hornets pick being like, yeah, let's just get Malik Brown in here because we know that he's going to help us defensively and he's going to make smart plays.
He's one of the smartest defenders in college basketball. Block rate of 3.4 on the year, steal rate of 5.4 on the year, and that speaks exactly to what you were just talking about with his positioning, with his anticipation. His defense isn't reactionary. We always talk about being a step ahead and playing two passes ahead on the offensive end from like a playmaking standpoint. He does that on the defensive end where he knows where the ball's going. He knows what rotation he needs to make before he needs to make it. And the rebounding on both ends of the floor is really positive as well. Now, obviously, he's not going to provide much of anything in terms of scoring or shooting. Turnovers have to get a lot better, but like, could he not be like an Isaiah Jackson type of role player?
Sure.
Now I'm not taking Malik Brown in the first round or anything, but depending on how withdrawals look, second round, like late second round flyer or priority two-way guy, why not? Because he's got so many tools. He's such a smart player. Needs a little media training on, talking about the
What do you mean?
talking about the toughness of opponents. But that can be coached, and just doing the little things as like a deep bench guy, and all of the tools, all of the numbers are there, and he's second on the team in BPM as well. So yeah, when he's out there, he is producing winning basketball.
Yeah, I'm getting to like he's in my top 60 now for like the first time this season. Still tinkering with exactly how high I want to get carried away with just the winning nature of him.
Hmm.
And just real quick question for you before we move on from this game. Caden Boozer has been stepping up in the latter portions of the season. Create like conspiracy Steven is here, okay? Did did Caden Boozer suck until the last part of the season so that he can be drafted in the second round to the same team as his brother?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think his development has kind of gone exactly how I expected it would. I was never big on the Caden Boozer as a one and done guy. I think he's a really smart player and is
Yeah.
probably going to be a really good backup in the NBA for a long time. But what's the rush in that? I'm not sprinting to go get drafted potentially in the second round and get on the two-way. Go back to Duke.
Okay.
Go back to Duke's going to be awesome next year again. Go back to Duke or transfer to Miami or go somewhere where you're going to get big time minutes and big time responsibility, and that very well could just be at Duke next year, who is
Sure.
going to be awesome every single year. So yeah, and he's playing really really well. I'm not trying to
He
detract
is.
from how good he's been these last couple of weeks, but I think this is for me. I think it should be more of a springboard into next year rather than oh, yeah, no, now I'm going into the draft, and go test and whatnot because always, but yeah, that I just still don't see him as a this year guy.
Yeah, you're approaching it with logic, just like Dirty Dancer in the chat and Antoine Willis. Shout out to the chat. I kind of tongue in cheek mean this as a joke, but I see the commercials that they're in together, and I'm just like, sneaky suspicion that he just wants to be a second round pick so he can go be drafted somewhere
And
with
they
his
could still
brother.
be in commercials together next year.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole thing is weird, and like the whole Yukon team is in a commercial now. Like, what is up
Yeah.
with that? Like, who's asking for that? Anyway, well, any last thoughts from this game, or do you want to kind of move on?
I thought Isaiah Evans had another solid game despite only
Oh
2
yeah,
of
I guess we
8,
could
8
talk
from
about the other
3.
draft guy. Yeah,
I don't think there's a ton but 17 points. He made some really tough shots.
that 4 point play. Ooh,
That was nasty. But like I still don't know if he's a this year guy just because he's so erratic and all over the place, and it feels like you can kind of
really?
grab those guys a lot.
Okay.
I don't know. I love him. I think I still have a first round grade on him, but it's late. And again, kind of going back to the Caden point of like, if you're not getting a top 20 or first round promise, just go back.
Yeah, be in commercials with Caden because Cam is going to be in the
Exactly,
NBA.
because
Like, there's your other commercial
Caden has
buddy.
a horrible brother who's abandoning him. It's
Yeah.
selfish.
Will you be there for me when adversity hits? So we'll move on to the next game that I want to talk about with you, Mister Michigan Wolverine fan. Your team beat the St. Louis Billikens in a game that went pretty much the way that I thought it was going to go. We talked about this during the kind of like round of 64 competition where Yaxel Lindenborg only scored 9 points, but we got the
Mhm.
big Mara game. McKinney looked good. There, Cadeau was gaining his confidence. That backcourt we spoke on, Roddy Gale, that backcourt was really building some confidence. And I mentioned in that episode that the 9 points doesn't matter to me because you want the others in that game to build their confidence. That way, when they go to the next game, they're still going to be connected. But Yaxel has the opportunity now to step in and kind of show what he can do. He did just that. He had 25 points on 9 of 13 scoring, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. I'm curious to see what NBA teams are going to do with the Axel because he's going to be a grandfather, when the NBA
Yeah.
draft comes up, and we know how NBA teams like thou shalt not draft old men in the lottery. Look at Dalton Connect, woo, big
Yeah.
boogeyman storyline going on there, right? Never mind how Cedric Howard is looking in the NBA this season, right? Um, what do you make of the performance? Let's talk projection too. Like, how do you anticipate the draft going with him as well?
Late teens, early 20s with him.
Okay.
Because he is older and the advanced numbers may suggest this is a top 10 guy and he may return top 10 value, especially in the first couple years of his career. If we're doing a redraft 3 years from now, he very well, we could be doing it and be like, oh, sixth pick. Yeah, I'm taking Yax because he's been awesome.
Yeah.
And he should be. And the one of the perks of him being an older rookie is that you're getting him almost in his prime years on a rookie deal. So you get him and that production for cheap, assuming everything goes how we expect and hope that it does, because we're always rooting for these guys. Um, but that's kind of short term thinking, and I do think I think the willingness to take him despite his age a little earlier makes more sense than taking Dalton Connect in the lottery, and or I think where that
Top
argument
10, right?
differs
Yeah.
I think where that argument really differs is that Dalton Connect was a specialist. He was awesome at Tennessee, but we never really expected him to be the on-ball creator and scorer that he was at Tennessee in the NBA. And if you're taking it, you can't really take a specialist who's also that old that early in the first round. Whereas Yaxel, we saw him be the offensive hub at UAB and put up absurd numbers every single game. And this year at Michigan, we've seen him take a step back into being more of a role player and stepping up when needed, like he did in this game with 25. We're seeing him be a spot up shooter, be a lock in and have defense be his primary concern. And we've seen the role malleability with him at his size makes it so much more encouraging than like a specialist at his age, like a Dalton Connect was. So, and if he does go lottery, I'm not going to be floored because there's so many tools. The production over a multi-year span here, and it just is what it is. But every single year, NBA teams tell us what they value, and it's not 23-year-old dudes.
Yeah, I mean, look at Neat Clifford. Clearly, a lot of us at No Ceilings thought like top 10, maybe top 12 talent, like even on the low end, probably cumulatively. And he went later than that. And I think that Yaxel is having a better season than what Neek had last year. It's really close, but like you said, Yax is older than what Neek was, when he came out. So it kind of sucks. But let's talk his performance in this game. Encouraging moments for him, right?
Mhm.
The one assist that he had was
Was
probably the
the
most
assist of the
fun
year.
assist. Yeah, that. Let's talk about the quarterback pass that he had to Damara, because that typically goes the other way around.
I did that when he chucked that. I'm like, oh no, because unless it's Mara throwing it, that pass never goes well. But he put it right on the rim. Gorgeous little reverse back tip by Mara. That talk about the agility and the balance from the 7'4" dude getting out in
Yeah.
transition. But God, that pass was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And I think it also like that pass was the highlight, but I think that passing permeated the rest of the team, and I thought their ball movement throughout this entire game was phenomenal. And Yaxel was a big part of that with his driving kick ability, making the extra pass, playing unselfish. So really, from start to finish, he was efficient. He was impactful. You always felt his presence out there. A lot of really good defensive stuff with the scrambles. So it's tough to ask for much more than what he gave in this one.
And I think that you could probably say the same thing about teammate Ade Mara, the
Yeah.
guy who was on the receiving end of that oop. I don't know if anybody within the first two games, this is where we get to do the I don't know if anybody segment of the show. I don't know if anybody has impressed me more within the first two games than Ade
Mm,
Mara. And this is coming off of a year where we have examples now of, gigantic human beings succeeding in the NBA at a pretty rapid rate with Zach Edey, Donovan Clingan. And Amara figures to be the next gargantuan to get drafted into this year's draft, potentially, and be that next heir apparent of successors for those tall guys to do well.
hmm
He's looked so good the last two games, dude. Like, the assist stuff we knew was there. The finishing stuff, you posted something that I saw as well, and posted on that beautiful drop step that he had, that,
It's nasty.
nasty left hook, where he's got counters to his game now. He's got that feathery touch. You trust him to move the ball. He's a good rim protector. Even though the rebounding numbers aren't like overwhelming, it's long been discussed how this front court is kind of cannibalizing each other in terms of
Yeah.
rebounding. We just know that there's probably better rebounding there. What do you think of Ade Mara, man? Like, how this has got to be helping his projection.
At this rate, assuming he doesn't just have a total dud next weekend, I don't see how he doesn't go lottery. Um,
Yeah.
he's been phenomenal. The rim protection has been dominant all year, but also the rim deterrence. When you look at their defensive field goal metrics, when he's on the court, and opponents like closest shot or the closest shot when Adaimara is on the court is about 3 feet further away from the rim than when he's off the court. So guys are scared to challenge him. It's the exact opposite of what we were talking about with Duke, where when defenders get funneled to the rim and they see this 7'4" dude just waiting there for him, they're like, "Mm, I'm good." And he constantly forces kickouts or, tough floaters, inefficient mid range pull ups. And we're seeing him at least survive when he gets dragged out to the perimeter and move his feet. Now, obviously, you don't want him switching and stuff out there, but when he's able to keep the ball on one side of his body and not have to flip his hips, the footwork is fine enough and the balance is fine enough that he can at least stay somewhat attached and then use his length to really disrupt stuff. And he gets those recovery blocks from behind all the
Yep.
time on those kinds of drives. And then on offense, he just keeps getting a little more comfortable by the game. The drop step spin move going either direction to either hand. The touch is great. He's lightning quick on that move. He's great at feeling where guys are leaning on him on those post ups and countering it. And then he's the best passing big in the country.
Yeah.
So obviously the free throw numbers and the are still a major issue and a major concern. But like at a minimum, as like a backup big man, we're seeing these massive human beings coming into the NBA and being absolutely crucial to teams, both defensive and offensive schemes. And I think he's continuing to prove that he's so much more than just a large human being. There's legitimate and meaningful basketball skill and physical tools there, basically on an every night basis.
I mean, look at the translation that Ryan Kalkbrenner has had, coming from Creighton, playing at Charlotte this year, one of the highest field goal percentages in the entire NBA, playing
Yeah.
huge minutes, even though he's also strength wise probably not where he needs to be, right? But he's still showing a lot of utility, and that gives me a lot of confidence for Ade Mara. Like in Kalkbrenner's draft class, based off of this year alone, if we had to do a redraft, everybody's favorite thing to do is right after a rookie season do a mock or a redraft. Kalkbrenner obviously goes way higher, probably maybe even in the like that lottery range. So it's hard for me, just like you're saying, it's hard for me to imagine him not getting selected in that range, especially when after the top 10, you could tell me anyone gets drafted anywhere, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Let's talk about the other guy of the triumvirate within that front court. Morris Johnson Jr. had 15 points on 5 of 9 shooting, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. I'm right there with how you and recently Maxwell have been talking about Morez Rutgers in that conversation too. Just about how productive he is and how good he looks, how great he moves, things like that. Of the three guys that we've talked about, where do you put Morez in terms of like ranking them in NBA projection?
I have him as a top ten guy in this draft, and I think he'll be the best big man from this draft. Now, that's not classifying Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer as bigs. I view them as forwards. Just if you want them as bigs, then yes, Mraz is behind them for me. But there aren't many guys who are as consistent and versatile and low maintenance as he is. That's what I love about his offensive game. Like, yes, the shot still needs a lot of work. I buy it though, long term. I think the free throw improvements, what I saw from him mechanically in person 2 years ago, and what he was working on then, and how that's grown into actual game reps this season. That really quick improvement, and then going back to just Hoop Summit the year before that, where I was like, oh my god, this guy has zero scoring touch. He'll never be able to shoot. He's a bum. Um, to now it's like, oh, I think he's actually going to shoot, like real tangible improvements on that end. And I think there's some passing upside. So I think the offensive stuff with him is just kind of scratching the surface. I never expect him to be someone out there creating shots for himself or others, but the dirty work, the hustle plays, the offensive rebounding, generating extra possessions, having some pick and roll versatility with rim running or settling into the short roll or popping for three, I think is all legitimate stuff. And he doesn't need the ball to make an impact. He doesn't need the ball to spark that energy from him on either end of the floor. Then defensively, he's guarding 1 through 5 every single night.
Yeah.
He's picking up point guards full court. He's switching onto the center, and then he's switching onto the wing out of the DHO and being the main point of attack defender at the top of the arc, and then collapsing down and being the low man and protecting the rim. So I love his game. It reminds me so much of Isaiah Stewart.
Yep.
And if he hits his like 95th percentile outcome, like Al Horford, and even if he's like,
Ooh,
he's just
okay.
kind of a role player. Like we've seen what Musa Diabate has meant to the Hornets this year, and at a minimum, that's a really really important player. Um, is he a star? No. Is he going to be a star? Probably not. But I just think he's going to be one of these guys that constantly produces a winning culture and produces a sense of expectations based on how hard he plays.
Let's talk real quick. McKinney's catching my eye. Like
Yeah,
how much future stock do you have in McKinney?
all of it. So sorry.
Okay.
No,
Can I
I think
get
he'll be.
one? May I have a stock, please?
I think he'll be a first rounder next year, and
Oh wow, I
he's
love
not a
that.
point guard, but I think these on ball reps, these backup point guard reps that he's getting with Kaysen out are going to be huge for his
So
development
Braden
going into
Burry's
next
type
year.
of a player,
Yeah,
right?
kind of like
Okay.
that toolsy combo guard, um, and he's shooting the crap out of it. And coming into the year, that was the expectation with him. It's like, oh, really good floor spacer, just lethal scorer, but not a whole lot else of anything. But we're seeing the passing reads continue to improve. We're seeing the rebounding impact. We're seeing the defensive effort. So I think he's going to be a monster next year, especially since Kaysen's going to redshirt and miss all of next year anyway. So they're going to be even more on ball reps for him.
Okay, cool. I want one stock so I can be on the island and be your friend. All right. And just real quick, salute to Robbie Avila, who did not
Yeah,
have the best game. He is just a fun player, fun college player. Like
and I'm still intrigued with a lot of the guys on St. Louis. Like
yeah,
Ishan Sharma, awesome shooter. Not today. Brady Dunlap started off lights out, then went cold. And
yeah.
when he's not knocking down everything, impact kind of comes and goes. And then I thought Kellen Tames did some really, really fun stuff out
Oh
there,
yeah.
but St. Louis just couldn't keep up with Michigan.
Yeah, tough game, tough game. Shout out to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Uh, Vanille Russell was one that I came up with today, so I had a fun time with the nickname aspect of Ravi Avila. Let's shift to another game that featured a player that you know that I am starting to become like very infatuated with
Mhm.
and have been for a while. Gonzaga at Texas. I picked Gonzaga to win this game, but
Same.
I've never been more happy to be wrong
Yeah.
with the outcome that I wanted the opposite to happen. Texas beats Gonzaga 74 to 68, and I believe that this is the back-to-back seasons now that Mark Few has lost in the round of 32, and that's the first time that's happened, I believe, since like the 2013-14 season. So interesting to see what kind of comes of that. Don't expect Few to get the axe or anything, but I'm just curious to see like how aggressive they attack, transfers and recruits and stuff like that. Um, Graham Ike, 25 points, Metcalf,
Yep.
but on 22 shots, only 3 rebounds and had 3 turnovers. I lay 99% of that at the feet of Matas Vokatitis, who finished the game with 17 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, no stocks, but in a very Steven Adams like game where he doesn't get a lot of stocks, but you just feel his presence on both ends of the floor, whether he's rebounding, setting a screen,
Yeah.
he's getting up in your stuff, just making you absolutely miserable the entire night. Matas Vokatitis is a guy who I think should test, obviously, get feedback. And I'm just very curious to see what the following steps after that look like. What did you take away from this game? And just help me to, keep the Matas, hype train going along here.
Yeah, yeah, we can obviously stick with Vocatitis. He was really good, and just his strength and physicality. It's just that classic Eastern European strength, where like he
Yeah.
doesn't look like a bodybuilder, but he's always the strongest guy out there, and he's just someone you don't want to fuck with. Um,
Yes, to put it bluntly.
and he just he's tough, and when that toughness actually gets translated into production, this is what it looks like. I still don't think he's a this year guy. Do you know how old he is? Because I know he's listed as a sophomore. Like, is he an actual sophomore? Or is he
I,
like
I,
28 years old?
I think he's 20, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken. I'd have to
so
look,
like
but he
reasonable.
is. He's not. Yeah, he's not. Yaxel Lenderborg,
He's not
as a
like
sophomore.
DeRitter age.
No, 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 no.
Okay,
He's not a 30-year-old freshman. Yeah,
okay, good. I still
yeah,
think he should come back. Showcase a little more finishing consistency, variety, a little more ball skills. Um, some versatility out of the short rollers, some more advanced reads. But that's the kind of stuff that can be improved on, especially when he has this foundation as the physical presence on the interior. And him and Ike were getting into it
it's
today,
fun.
and it was getting chippy.
I love it.
And I think he got in Ike's head and really took him out of the game, and it resulted in Ike taking a lot of bad shots, not doing much of anything on the boards, and offering zero rim protection or pick and roll defensive consistency. I thought his coverages were all over the place, and it allowed a guy like Dalen Swain to carve them up out of the pick and roll and
Yes.
DHOs, and he was just toying with Ike, who was constantly getting caught in no man's land.
Yeah, we can shift over to Dalen Swain. I just thought of a great idea though. 30-year-old freshman would be the Steve Carell prequel. That's actually comes out after 40-year-old virgin. I think that would be a fun movie. All right, so Dalen Swain, the real kind of eye here within this entire game of draft stock, like
Yeah.
what does he do? How does he translate? All that fun stuff. Had 11 points on 5 of 7 shooting. So you're probably like, oh my gosh, this dude only had 11 points on 7 attempts. Why on earth? Like, this is supposed to be the guy that everybody's falling in love with. But he had 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal as well. I just think that just another game for him where he sees, we talked about this yesterday. He sees things that a lot of people outside the top 4 within this draft class don't see, and I think that's why that gives him such a potential to be drafted higher than what some may think.
And when we initially talk about guys like Swain, who is listed at 6'8", 220, junior, with Texas, was at Xavier last year. And typically with those kind of guys, and we're like, oh man, he's just a beast getting to the rim. He gets downhill all the time, and then he's a smart passer out of those kinds of situations. At least for me, the initial image or archetype that I generate is like a bully ball driver,
Yeah.
and someone who just purely relies on their physical tools to do that. And that's not who Swain is at all. Um, his understanding of angles and changing direction and exploding in short areas and using like little escape dribbles to drag that drop defender out an extra step to free up a weak side rotation or the rim runner or something like that has been so impressive. And that craft as a potential secondary or tertiary creator at the next level, we're constantly seeing more of that. So I obviously wish he was an awesome shooter, but the versatility, the composure, and the creativity and his driving angles and his change of direction out of pick and rolls and handoffs, that's the kind of stuff that speaks to a really mature game that's way ahead of what 11 points and his, outside shooting numbers may suggest.
Yeah, sorry about that. My dog is
No,
a
you're good.
motion sensor. Yeah, that's just one of the things that we live is we have, I think, 8 mouths in the house that we feed to, including our animals. So we have a lot going on over here. But yeah, I really enjoyed that game from Swain as well. Him, Boca Titus, that shot from Heidi in the corner, that was a clutch bucket. Tremont Mark, I think, has been another fun name for Texas, even though his scoring wasn't really all that impressive today. The last game it was. He
Mhm.
comes up in big moments. That driving kick to Camden Heidi was awesome. Anything that you want to talk about on the Gonzaga side? Like, I love Saint Supari is a very fun name to say,
Yeah.
and a guy who I have a lot of future stock in as well.
Yeah, and he struggled today.
Yeah.
Only 1 of 6 from 3, and that's he's been one of the big spark plugs for Gonzaga, down the stretch of the regular season, where he was knocking down those outside shots a little more consistently, and it totally abandoned him today. But 5 assists, 1 turnover, a guy I'm really excited to see what next year looks like, and
Yes.
where the growth comes in his game. Kind of along those same lines, Davis Fogel, I love this dude. Shot
Yeah.
needs a
A
lot
lot
of
of people
work,
are in on him.
but the tools rock. And I was really, really happy that he started getting the minutes that he did to close out the year. Really fun defender, interesting passer, good athlete getting downhill, open court kind of stuff. It'll be fascinating to see what he looks like physically next year because he's got to get a lot stronger, and then what that does to a shot because it still needs work. But he would be one of the returners next year that has me really intrigued.
I think a lot of people are there with you with Fogel.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the I'm so interested to see what Coach View does next season. Like I said, with the way that the past 2 seasons in the postseason have
Yeah.
ended for Gonzaga. Let's hop over to the Texas A&M and M and Houston Cougar game. This was the game that when we did our kind of little preview to close yesterday's show, this was the game that I was like, okay, if there's going to be an upset, it's probably going to be this one, and it looked like it was going to be that way for a little bit
Mhm.
earlier in the game, but Houston did the Houston thing where you know, they just keep when they have their foot down, it stays down. Like no one's gonna move them off their line. Like as a team, not the biggest Kingston Fleming's game though. 4 of 10, missed his only 3-point attempt. Did have 4 assists, only 1 turnover. Had 1 steal, 1 block, and 5 rebounds. The Kingston performances as of late haven't been as superb compared to some of the other guard prospects within this class. You're shaking your head. You obviously see it as well. What has this done for like the guard discussion for you in turn? Because I mean, there's what, like 5 guards that we all have to kind of rank right now, like as to who's who in the zoo. Um, Kingston's a guy who last board I had behind Darius Acuff, behind Michael Brown. Um, but he's like that very next one for me after those guys.
Yeah, I think he's just coming back to the pack a little bit more down the stretch here, because some of his performances have cooled off a little bit. But that's what we've also talked about as being a plus with his situation this year of when he's not feeling it, he can play a little more off ball. He can do more of the complementary things because they also have Milo Souza on there who can run the show, who had a really solid game with
Yes.
15 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds tonight as well. A little inefficient shooting, but it'll happen. When you win by 31, I'll forgive it. But that's one of the perks with Kingston that some of these other guys don't necessarily have. Um, and it's no fault of his, but I do think it makes those who have him, maybe around the 10 range on their board. I think that argument there's more weight behind it. There's more substance behind it than maybe there was 2 months ago, where Kingston basically could do no wrong. But the
Yeah.
fact that he continues to do some really good defensive stuff, get deflections, get to his spots in the mid range, and then still think he's such a brilliant playmaker that even when
Yeah.
he's not having big scoring performances, he's still letting the offense run. He's still not a liability on defense, and he never really feels like he's taking himself out of the game.
I agree with you. And I have him like in that 7 to 8, I think somewhere around there right now. I have him ahead of Keaton Wogler for those who are trying to figure out where I'm stacking people. Just some concerns offensively for me, but think the speed is awesome. He did seem a little bit sped up in today's
Mhm.
game, but he was still, like you said, he sees the floor, he makes good reads, he gives a lot of effort, he gives second efforts, like even on the glass and stuff like that as well. I love the overall activity that you're getting
Yeah.
from him. And then Chris Sinak, I mean, in terms of draft prospects, there's a lot of people who were a little bit higher on him, a little bit lower. He finished today with 17 points on 5 of 9 shooting, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. You love to see the aggressiveness and that nature. 9 rebounds, 1 block. What did you think of the game? How are you feeling about Sinak?
This is the exact stat line we love to see from him because I'm super efficient scoring, not high volume, which suggests relatively solid shot selection, and then really impactful on the boards. You'd still wish the defensive numbers would be a little more impactful, but I love that work rate on the boards, and we've seen that from him all year long. Where even though the end result hasn't always been perfect, the desire, the process has been there, and it's just a matter. It almost feels a matter of like when, not if. And he was a big factor why Houston dominated the offensive glass today. They had 19 offensive rebounds and 10 of them, at least 10
Insane.
of them in the first half. And he had 3 of them on his own. So I thought he was impacting the game in all of the right spots in exactly the way that you hoped he would be.
You feeling confident this year? How are you
No,
feeling about the draft stuff?
I,
Okay.
I, I still have no idea. I think he's the biggest wild card for me. Where if he stays, probably tells me he has a top 20 guarantee. And he's one of these guys where in workouts at the combine, in interviews, I expect he'll really impress people. I don't think he'll be hard for coaches and execs and scouts to fall in love with him, especially if he lights it up during workouts, like we know he can. So the what if it goes right with him is so much fun. I just based on how the whole season has gone, though, I think another year at Houston could do wonders for his overall development. But if you're getting a top 20 promise, you just simply go.
Well, let me ask you this because I think that his decision, coming out of Link, committing to play for Houston, this was going to be boom bust
Hmm.
to a lot of us, and I think that he surprised us all and found the middle ground somewhere in between there. How do you think that he's doing compared to what your expectations were of him coming in? Again, we were expecting him to be just kind of like this floor spacing big man that was going to be all, maybe a little bit, more finesse, a little bit more kind of frill in the paint, I guess is one way that I'm putting it right now, for lack of a better term. But how did you feel about how he's looked playing for Houston this year compared to your preseason expectations?
Yeah, in the preseason, one of the things I kept going to was I would much rather him average lower numbers, but then have the impact and the rotations and him doing the little stuff be way more consistent. Because throughout high school is almost the inverse of that, where a lot of his numbers looked awesome, where he was knocking down shots all over the place and looking like a freak athlete out there, but then missing rotations and not making the extra pass and not seeing the floor like he needed to. And I feel like this year, throughout the bulk of it, it's fallen in what I hope to see, where even though he's been late on rotations, he's gotten in foul trouble, all of the warts have been there, the coachability has always been there, the desire from him to want to do the right thing and not just settle into old bad habits and chuck up bad shots and settle for turnaround mid-range jumpers. I feel like all of the bad habits are slowly getting erased out of his game and getting replaced with um, really good stuff instead. So is that NBA ready? Is like I still can't see an NBA coach being confident or comfortable putting
Yeah.
him in a rotation consistently, which worries me with guys where it's like, all right, well, you need to play to develop a lot of your weaknesses, and now you're riding on the bench. So that's where I kind of still lean to, man, maybe he should return for another year, and turn the great process that he's continued to build throughout this year into really stellar production next year.
And the good news is that we still have at least one more game of him this season to where
Mhm.
he can continue to add to his progression, and then obviously combine and intel season coming up. Between JoJo Uzan and your boy Sharp, any of these dudes do anything for you today that made you see them in a different light? Or you still kind of they are what they are at this point?
They kind of are what they are. Second round flyers kind of on all of them, where I'd be
Same.
really intrigued with. I still seem to be alone on still kind of liking Milos Uzan. I just keep getting Andrew Nemhard vibes from Gonzaga with him, where it's like, man, this guy's not going to be that good. And then he's been awesome with Indiana. Um, Obviously, he's a little more of an outlier, but it happens. And I just can't shake those similar vibes. And I love Emmanuel Sharp. I really hope he has one of these games next week, just for his own sake, where he just goes
Yeah.
like 7 of 8 from three. Because last year's tournament, he really struggled, only 2 of 8 from three uh, today. But the big growth with him this year compared to last year is that even when the shot's not falling, he's able to get downhill a lot more. He's getting to the line a lot more, 6 of 7 from the line, and he wasn't really doing any of that stuff last year.
Yeah, maybe he could do kind of like his best Chris Youngblood impression
Yeah.
to close out the season and get in the summer league and make a little bit of a name for himself.
Hmm.
That'd be fun. Last game that we want to discuss here before we kind of do like a preview of tomorrow's games. Louisville versus Michigan State. I mean, the state of Michigan was just in a state of bliss today with the Spartans beating the Cardinals 77-69, just like we anticipated. No Michael Brown. Ryan Conwell had the biggest game for the Cardinals in a losing effort with 21 points on 7 to 15 shooting, most of those coming from deep.
Hmm.
4 boards, 4 assists, no stocks. How are we feeling about Conwell? Personally, I had him as an early second throughout most of the season. Kind of bringing him back, man. Like mid to late second round is where he's living for me.
Yeah, I was flirting. I had him like late first, late 20s, for a while there. First couple months of the season, and now I've started to scale back towards like early second round, priority two-way type of guy. He's fun, man. He's
Yeah,
really, really fun. But one of the
strong
issues,
too. Yeah,
as we've seen throughout this entire year, is when Michael Brown's out there, his impact is different. I know he put up really good numbers today, but
yeah,
just the offensive flow isn't there. He's not a point guard. And at his size, that's a kind of an issue because it's really tough to be a 6'4" shooting guard in the
yeah,
NBA. He's an awesome shooter, but he needs a point guard out there, or at least a jumbo creator out there with him. He can't be the lead creator or initiator in any sense of it. As a secondary guy who's running those kind of actions or attacking closeouts, that aspect of his game has improved a ton over the last 2 years. But it's still not to the point of being like, all right, initiate the offense, get into the flow. He's an awesome shooter, awesome off ball scorer, but I've definitely I'm with you. I've cooled on him from where I was a couple months ago.
yeah. And it sucks because he's very like such a likable guy. And shout out to Michael Brown. Like I don't know if you saw it, I put it in the group chat, but the post game where he's
Mhm.
obviously very emotional, like that he couldn't be out there with his guys and losing effort. I'm still high on him. I do kind of wonder though, how severe the back injury stuff is with
Yeah.
him. It's just it kind of sucks and it is what it is. But shout out to Michael because it seems like he's a great teammate. For Michigan State though, Cohen Carr had a fantastic game. Did his
Mhm.
best Otega Owe impression tonight with 21 points, 8 of 13 from the floor, 2 4 from deep, 10 boards, 2 blocks, and a steal. Uh, Looked awesome. No fouls too, with how dogged he plays on the defensive end. Very
Yeah.
impressive. Another one of these guys that I think that you can drop in the man. If Miami gets this guy, they're gonna turn him into a demon bucket.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
struggle with this Michigan State team from a draft standpoint because, like, Cohen Carr's tools are insane, and when he's right, he looks awesome. But it's like once every 10 games. So I imagine we'll see basically all of these guys back next year. I still really like Jordan Scott, probably the most from an NBA
Oh,
draft
dude, yeah,
standpoint.
he's fun.
I think he's going to be a beast next year. I
I
think
like
he's going to be a
Ward
real
too.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, Ward's a lot of fun. Jeremy Fears set the NCAA tournament record for most assists in a game
Saw that.
with 16. Yeah, I don't know what to do with him because he seems very limited offensively, especially like shooting wise and stuff like that. I could probably see him getting a two-way E10 somewhere in that
Mhm.
neighborhood. I wouldn't be in a hurry to draft him, but just a very heady performance from him. Anything that you want to add for Fears before we get to tomorrow's slate?
He'll be a pro. He's an awesome player, really, really smart. Um, Needs to get all of the bullshit out of his game because there's just too much of it, and it
Why, Ike?
infects how
Whatever
he
do you
plays.
mean? Yeah,
Let's stop throwing cheap shots all over the place. And once he does, and the problem is that overshadows the actual impact and ball that he's playing because he's
yes,
such a good player. I don't think he's going to be an awesome starter or anything in the NBA, but like a Jose Alvarado, TJ McConnell type of path, I think there's something there, or at least like Jordan McLaughlin, third point guard in the rotation type of thing, because he's super smart, really good passer, really good defender, and on the right night can knock down some shots when needed.
I agree. All right, so for tomorrow's slate of games, Metcalf,
Mhm.
actually, I'm going to put you on the spot tonight like you did me. Do you have a score update for the games that are taking place
I
so far tonight?
I do. So we were while we were recording, the Illinois game ended. They ended up being VCU by 21. Currently, Vanderbilt is up on Nebraska by 3 with 4 minutes left in the game, 67-64. And with about 16 minutes left in the second half, Arkansas is up 52-48 on High Point.
Phew, okay, come on Arkansas and come on Huskers. I have them in the upset over Vandy on my bracket. All right, so speaking of brackets, tomorrow is the day 2 of the field of 32, round of 32. First game is going to be Miami Purdue, followed by Kentucky Iowa State, St. John's Kansas, Tennessee Virginia, Iowa Florida, Utah State versus Arizona, UCLA versus UConn, and then last game will be Texas Tech versus Alabama. Which game are you most excited about for tomorrow? We're gonna watch them all, but
Yeah,
which one are you circling?
it's got to be St. John's, Kansas. I think from a Darren Peterson standpoint, that's going to be an awesome data point because St. John's has a ton of athletes to throw at him.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated to see if he gets Dylan Mitchell right out of the gate or how they approach that. And then even on the interior, Zuby versus Flory, it should be a lot of fun. So I think there are a lot of really good games and a lot to take away from a lot of these. But like if I only had time for one of these, it'd be St. John's, Kansas.
yeah. St. John's, Kansas is the one to circle. Darren Peterson, obviously a potential top 3 pick within this year's draft. St. John's is coach, Hall of Fame coach Zuby Ejiofor, trying to bolster this contingent of people who were trying to get him to be a first round guy. I think Texas Tech and Alabama is going to be an interesting
Yeah.
one. I have Bama pulling that game out. Not super confident. Looking forward to seeing how Jalen Petty does against, the Alabama backcourt. Any thoughts on that matchup?
And even just LeBaron Philon versus Christian Anderson.
Yeah,
It'll be I can't I'm intrigued to see what or how they match up. I kind of doubt they'll take each other, but you never know. You
It'd
can
be
hope.
cool if they did.
I hope they do, but I'm assuming just for preserving their legs for the offensive end, they don't. Cowards, don't be cowards.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
But I think that's going to be a really fun head-to-head matchup, and then even just some of like the wings and forwards on Alabama, like a London Jemison, Taylor Bowen,
Mari
and
Allen.
Amari Allen, Aiden Terrell. I think they're just going to have a little too much for Tech to deal with from a depth and versatility standpoint. But uh, we just kind of keep counting out this Tech team, and they just kind of keep pulling off these wins.
I was gonna say they're the Giant Slayers, man. Like
Yeah.
the pelts that they have on their wall this season are pretty, or those to be envious of. All right, so Metcalf, let's wrap up there.
Okay.
Anything that you want to plug or say before we go while my dog is going nuts again?
No, just shout out to everyone joining live. Stephen, I don't want to speak for you, but I've enjoyed doing these shows. So
A lot of
it's always
fun.
fun. It's always fun when people tune in. And again, appreciate all of you for getting us to 22. We're on to 23, 24, 25, 45, so on. NoCeilingsNBA.com, No Ceilings YouTube, socials, like, subscribe, 5 stars. So all that good stuff.
Yeah, and so we'll go ahead and close there. So for my co-host for tonight and probably for future nights, Tyler Metcalf, for myself and the rest of the No Ceilings family, we will catch up with y'all next time. Much love, y'all.